I got my life mixed up in drugs, and my wife begged me and cried to not do it before I went to prison, and I got sent to prison, and the pastor I have now come by my house before I went to prison, and I rededicated my life to God. And so when I got to prison, you had to do things a certain way, their way, and only their way, or they would leave. I had to do 10 years if I didn't. And I didn't do it their way, I did it God's way. And every time I wrote an answer out on something or something, I'd say, but how am I going to stay free? I'm going to use God to stay free. And they called me in the office one day and told me if I didn't stop and do it their way, I'd do 10 years. And I said, God, it says in the Bible that if I deny God, He'll deny me. I'm not denying God. I'll do 10 years. If He wants me here 10 years, He's got a reason, and I'll do the 10 years for that reason. And then a few weeks later, they called me back in. They told me to just keep doing what I'm doing. They believed me. They thought I was for real. I wasn't doing jailhouse religion. I was really living for God. And I graduated, walked out, and every guard and every teacher and everybody in there lined up in a line and hugged me and kissed me or shook my hand and told me they was proud of me for doing what I believed in, and that was doing what God wanted me to do. And I got to come back home with my family. I had a new grandson at home, and I prayed every day that he was young when I left, a baby. I prayed every day that God wouldn't let him forget me, and man, he was glad to see his papa, and not as any more glad than I was to see him, but he was glad. He knew who Papa was, and we've been just like partners ever since. We're buddies, but it's all because of my pastor, God leading my pastor to my house, and my sister asking my pastor to come in and pray with me, and he did. And that day I gave my life back to God. I rededicated my life, and that was years ago, 20 years ago, and I've never turned back since. And I'm not going to ever turn back. I got an eternal home in heaven, and that's where I'm going to be. When I made drugs, I wasn't so much like, I didn't really care if I took a lot of drugs. I was more into making it and selling it. And there was a person that got to hanging around, and I know I shouldn't have been around. And I realized that somehow or other the cops had got her to tell on me. They got to knowing too much about my business, and so she come out one day and wanted to buy some dope, and I was hid, and these other guys sold her some, and so they told me they did, and I went to town and took it and towed her money back in and told her not to ever come back. And that night we was at a motel and standing in front of a garage, and this guy wanted some dope, and I got him some, and I had a whole bunch in my hand in a metal deal with a magnet up, and I was holding my hand up under the bed of my pickup, the ring around it, and they come around the building with their guns drawn and telling us to freeze, and I just let go of that box, and it stuck to the pickup, and he starts running backwards and putting his hands in his pocket, and they got to screaming just as loud as they could to stop her. He was going to shoot, and I even got to screaming at him to stop, or they're going to kill us if you don't stop. They will kill us. And finally he stopped, and they made him get on his knees, and they searched us, and we went through the whole program and all that, and we went to jail, and they had some other charges that they could use. It would have took a lot of time and money to have proved it, but I got out, I thought, pretty good for what. I was done with that kind of life. I really was. I was just done with it. I knew that for a long time I didn't want nothing to do with God. I don't know if it wasn't that I didn't want nothing to do with God, but my son died, and my dad died, and my mom and brother got killed, and I just. But God told me one day going out my driveway that if I didn't change my ways, that I had two roads I could take, and one of them was His way or the way I'm going, and if I keep going the way I'm going, that it's going to be bad. And it got bad. It got real bad before it was over. It just, it got ugly for me. And it made it ugly for my family, and that it wasn't their fault. If anything, they begged me to stop, and they shouldn't have been treated the way they was. Looked down upon because I was the one doing it, and so my wife went to work and made it work till I got back home, and while I was in prison, they wanted me to do things their way, and I was doing it God's way. And when I would write an answer down on a question they'd give me, I'd put how I was going to stay free from drugs. I put that with the help of God, and that wasn't what they wanted. And that's why they told me that I was going to have to do 10 years if I didn't change it. And I told them, no, I'm not going to deny God. And my wife kept our household going and was there waiting with me. And when I got out with open arms, and I had more trouble forgiving myself for what I did than I did. I wrote probably, I'm telling how many letters asking my wife to please forgive me, and she would tell me, I forgive you. You just need to stop and just move on. I forgave you for what you done, and now you forgive you. And so it probably took a couple of years or more before I could forgive me for what I did. And really, once I got rededicated with Jesus, and I seen that I had to forgive myself, and God helped me do it. And that's what I did. I was in town one day, and there was this pickup following me, and I knew about all of them. I had people all the way from DEA to Drug Task Force and the Highway Patrol and every law enforcement there was following me, and I pretty well knew all their vehicles. Well, there was a strange one following me one day I didn't know, and I thought, oh, they got a new rig. So I turned and they'd turn, and I'd turn and they'd turn. I thought, you're not going to my house. My new grandson's there, and I don't want him to see this. And so I turned and they didn't turn. So I rode a little while and I went home, and when I got home, I got out and I was standing around the front yard just kind of, I was just really down. And that pickup pulled in, and I thought they found me anyway. And it was my pastor, David Lovins, got out. And at first, my first instinct was, it's the pastor, oh no. And then, but really down deep inside of me, I was glad, I was just done with that. I knew that he was there for a reason. He didn't know he was coming there. I didn't know he was coming there. God led him there. He didn't have no idea he was going to my house. And we talked a while, and my sister was there, and we got talking. She come out, and my wife and my daughter, and we was talking, and my sister just out of the blue said, "David, would you come in and pray with us?" And he said, "Sure, I'd be glad to." And he come in, and that was the end of that road. I stopped following my road, and I started following God's road, and it's been a good road. That there ain't been tough times, but it's been a good road for me and my family that we went ahead and followed God's road. And because I was just the drugs, it seemed like it made you feel like you had power or something, and of course you always had money if you're selling that much drugs, and it just made you feel, and that wasn't what I was wanting at all. And I'd worked hard all my life, very hard, and I got laid off from a good job, me and several other guys, and so I chose to make the drugs, and that's how making drugs ended up for me, going to prison. And thank God that he gave me the wife that he did, and the church family that I got that has blessed me too. It's not just it wasn't just my family, but it was my church family that's been with me through the whole thing. I've got a lot of people that has been more than good to me. I mean, they have blessed me so much that it's just unreal how my church has blessed me, and I wouldn't trade that for 1,000 lives like I had before. Back when we first got married, and Amanda was 3, I think. One night we was at home in the bed, and Debbie wakes me up and she said, "Willie, the house is on fire." And so I'm trying to get it together enough, and I wasn't doped up or nothing. I'd been working on hard and a lot, and so we thought we had the kids in between us. And when Debbie went out the bedroom door and turned to the right to the front room, to the outside door, and we thought the kids was going to the outside door. And when I went out the bedroom door, the ceiling fell in on the bed. And when they went out the door that goes outside, and I was the last one, the ceiling fell in the living room. And we got outside, and our little boy wasn't there. And so we started screaming, and I thought I gotta find him, whatever. And so I started knocking windows out, doing everything, but there was one window that kept drawing me to it. And the window was as tall as I was, the bottom of it, and I knocked the window out, and I'd try to climb up in it, and the smoke was boiling out so hot that I just found myself laying on the ground, and I'd get back up and try it again. And I did that, and I did that, and I did that, and I thought there's no way I'm going to get in there. And so I went and started doing, but I just kept thinking of that window. And so I went around, and I went in the house in the kitchen way because all the smoke was going out the windows in the other part of the house. But there was nothing there. I even had the kitchen floor up, was remodeling. And I thought, well, I can't do nothing here. And I probably wasn't 15 foot from him, but I didn't know and I couldn't see. And I went around the side of the house and there was a neighbor lady trying to crawl in a window. And so I thought, I got to get her out of there. She'll die. That ceiling has already fell in. And so I pulled her out and I said, "You can't go in there. That the ceiling fell in, and you'll die." And so I went back around, and the fire chief at the time, when he got there, he was the first fire person there. He didn't have none of his equipment. It was all on the fire truck, and he said, I'm going in that house and I'm not coming back out till I got that little boy. And finally, they decided it's time to look for him. And when they got to the front door, he was collapsing at the front door because he didn't have nothing but his clothes on. And come to find out, the window that I kept trying to go in, our little boy ran around the other way. He sat down up in the corner, and that's where he passed away. And the next day, there was a man come the next night, and he told me, he said, I don't know you and you don't know me, but something told me I need to come and talk to you if you got a minute. And I said, sure. And he said, I work for a company, insurance companies, that burns different things in houses to see how fast they burn and what kind of smoke they put up. And he said, I just felt like I needed to tell you that your son probably didn't take 2 or 3 breaths until he was gone. He had went to sleep. He said he didn't suffer. He didn't. He said, I don't know why I was supposed to come and tell you this, but, and I knew why he was supposed to, because it just made me feel better. It didn't take the pain away, but I knew he didn't lay there and burn up, and that was my worry. And I was on the way to the hospital in an ambulance, and they said, we need to call somebody. Over the radio, I heard it, and it said, we need 1 small body bag brought up here. And so then I knew he was gone for sure. He was. And for years, I didn't blame God, but I couldn't understand, why did God let it happen? I knew that he didn't kill my son. God don't go around killing babies. But he could have stopped it. And I didn't understand, why didn't he stop it? And I finally realized it's not meant for me to understand. It just happened, and there's a reason, and maybe someday I'll find out, and maybe someday I won't, but it don't matter, because my little boy's been in heaven since 1984, I guess it was. And after that, I drove a truck, and Amanda went with me every day almost, and she would lay in the sleeper in the back, and she sang Jesus Loves Me all day long. And I think that's what helped me keep my sanity, was that she sat back there and sang Jesus Loves Me all day long. She did it every day. And I finally got it through my head that Jesus does love me. And it was because of her that happened, and that I got that finally through my head, that Jesus loved me. And so, but it still, I had heard, and I had wondered as to why, why God why didn't he go out the door as we went? We couldn't see each other. It was so black with smoke in there. I couldn't have seen nobody that was sitting right here. And I thought he was in front of me. And when I turned to go, Debbie went out, and Amanda went out, and he turned that way. And then I went out, and I didn't see him turn. And as soon as I got out the front door, we seen he wasn't there. And so I jerked the front door back open, and there was a ball of fire come out that door, and it just shoved us all back from out in the yard. And so I knew I couldn't go in there, and it was just, I started knocking windows out, and, but I knew something about that one window, that I had to get in that window, but I just couldn't get in it. And so I tried everything else. And there was a couple explosions. It was just like, cans of cleaning stuff. And every time it happened, I'd start to run that way, and the policeman would grab me and jerk me back. And, it was just natural instincts to want to go in. But he didn't burn. He had 2 little blisters on his finger. He sat there and that man said he probably took 2 or maybe 3 breaths of that air, and he went to sleep. And he said that was it. And so after I finally got to where I realized that why didn't God save him was that God's got him now, and he's taking care of him, and better care than I probably could have ever took of him. And so, and people would say, I don't know how you can do this, and don't, how you can handle that. And I would think, if you only knew the pain that it's brought us, if you just only knew, it would break you to pieces. But I didn't say nothing. I just go on and let it be at that. I'm just thankful that I didn't have no idea. I thought the law was follow me one day, and to come to find out, God was sending my pastor David to for me to rededicate my life. And David didn't have no idea that he was going to my house. He just turned in there. And I got my life rededicated, and I even bucked up against the state of Missouri and their rules at the prison, and I won because I had God backing me, and I was right about what I was doing. And so I'm thankful that I got God back in my life and that I won. I'm very thankful for it. So that's God is only the only way that you'll ever get peace in your heart and freedom, and just live a good life. You'll have ups and downs, but God will help you back up. If you go down, He'll help you up, and that's it. And He's the one and the only God, and He's there with us all the time.